I like pretty much both equally, but if you press me hard, I'm gonna pick science fiction. When I was a kid, it was definitely fantasy, but as an adult, I'm definitely more into sci-fi. Um, there's not enough good sci-fi RPGs, sci-fi games. My wife prefers fantasy. She's not a science fiction fan. So we end up watching quite a bit more fantasy TV and stuff than we do science fiction. But most of the stuff I watch that's sci-fi, I watch on my own. Um, I think it's because fantasy is a lot easier to understand as a kid, and it's generally a broader audience, whereas science fiction can get really technical. I mean, you can have complicated magic systems, but I feel like when you start getting into things like quantum physics and hyperspace travel, a good example of this is go back and read the Hyperion Cantos by um, Dan Simmons. The Hawking's drive technology, like all of the stuff that went into making that quantum universe with the Shrike. Like if you've never read, it's definitely adult material. Like it's not for kids. That's not a PG-13 reading. That's definitely a rated R book series. Um, the poet in particular. But I would say looking at in modern times, I would look at the Hyperion Cantos, but you can go back to like any of the Larry Niven, and even to a lesser degree like Roger Zelazny stuff from like the 70s, 60s, 70s, early 80s. Like there was the hard science fiction genre, which doesn't it's not hugely popular these days, but hard sci-fi is something that kids and the average person's just not going to get into because it's very technical. Yeah, wormhole stuff. Right, exactly, J Officer. Wormhole stuff gets. You can have good sci-fi that's like the next Star Trek: The Next Generation, Babylon 5, where it's a story being told against a science fiction backdrop. That's just. It's like, that's sci-fi in space. That's fantasy in space. That's fun. It's awesome. But when you get into the hard sci-fi stuff, I think that's when you get into the technical stuff that you're going to lose the general audience that you have with most fantasy, because people are going, wait, what, quantum timelines, and there's what, quantum dimensions, what, dark matter, what's going on here? Oh, and there's hyperdrive technology and um, all this stuff, like the Robert Heinlein stuff. Yeah, especially the 70s, I would say that was a good time for hard sci-fi. But yeah, for me, like if I go and look at some of my favorite shows, it's stuff like Battlestar Galactica, the reimagined series from the early 2000s, The Expanse, more recently. Those are two just incredible quality science fiction shows that have complicated stories, really cool technology. We're dealing with the concept of souls and religion, but also dealing with robots and and then you get into the political stuff on The Expanse, and the way like they film the ship scenes in space and like the space combat and all the zero G stuff. Both of those shows, by the way, Battlestar Galactica and The Expanse, had phenomenal VFX teams working on those space dogfights, right? Those space fight shots. Fucking amazing stuff. I cannot wait for the Expanse game that Owlcat is working on right now, by the way. Anyway, that is the quick answer to sci-fi versus fantasy. I do prefer sci-fi. A little bit. It's just, but it's the thing. It's like I graduated from a kid. I loved fantasy up until I was probably in my mid-20s, and then I was like, ooh, science fiction's really good. There's some fun stuff here. And it's like more complicated. It makes me think a little bit more. Mass Effect would not be hard sci-fi. No, hard sci-fi is stuff that deals specifically with like the math and science, right, of science fiction.